Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Scormey. And today we're doing something a little different, a little bit more like I used to do back in the, 2019, 2020 sort of era. Yes, we've gone back to VTubing. I finally got something working. I was trying animes and it just would not play well with my webcam. So I had to go back to Face Rig. Yes, Face Rig. I know it's dead, but still works for me. So, yay, I guess. I mean, kind of works anyway. It's the best I can do. Anyway, today we're going to be doing something a little different, a little unusual. See, we're in the depths, you might say, of the spooky season. Halloween is just around the corner, next Friday. And so, I know a lot of people like to run special games, especially one-shots, for Halloween for their gaming group. Or just to play solo, whichever works, right? So, excuse me a moment. Try and move this where I can actually see it a little better. Okay. Anyway, so why am I keeping to look over there? I haven't done anything over there. Anyway, sorry, trying to monitor how FaceRig is working and the chat. Hey, Leggett, nice to see ya. Trying to monitor so it doesn't look like complete ass. But I have a feeling it's going to look like complete ass. Regardless, I know people like to play horror games for Halloween. So I picked 13 games that I really wanted to show off, that I like for various reasons. I'm going to do them in alphabetical order because they are all great in my mind in different ways. So I'm going to start off with the one I have played the most. This used to be my go-to Halloween game. My group enjoyed it at first, really enjoyed it for a while, and then they kind of demanded that we, try something different occasionally. What game would that be? Let's see if the transition actually works this time. Woohoo! It did. All flesh must be eaten. And yes, I know last week I tested out showing the games physically, having a camera on them and everything, and we're not going to do that again. That sucked. Anyway, that's beside the point. All flesh must... Words are hard. All flesh must be eaten. What is it? Well, it's a zombie game. Zombie apocalypse, which you might kind of figure out. The artwork is very indicative of, well, what you'd expect from zombie survival horror. It's pretty flippin' awesome. I love this game for a variety of reasons. First of all, super easy to play, and it's extremely evocative of what you're looking to do. Straight up zombie horror, right? And yeah, it's pretty cool. I go depths on all the details, but that's really not the really here. The uni system. Now, what exactly is the uni system? It It's a game system. Oh, I can't even remember the name of the company. It's literally right there in front of me because I, kind of have the PDF of the book in my hands on my computer, whatever. They started out with, if I remember right, a game called Apocalypse. I don't have it, but that system was then used in Witchcraft. Oh, we're about to get an ad. Sorry about that. So if you get stuck watching that, we'll just babble for a bit because it's kind of hard to tell when the ads actually start. And I hate the ads, but it is what it is. They're going to either throw ads at me or I can just embrace the damn thing and do half an hour, 30 seconds every hour. Just get through it and be done with it. Could be worse. This could be YouTube. Sorry, needed a drink of Diet Coke. It's too early in the morning for this. Oh, and as an aside, I apologize. I did not stream yesterday at all. That's on me. Oh, now the ad finally starts. Hey, but no pre-roll ads for 11 minutes. Yay. Anyway, I didn't stream yesterday for a particular reason. I was super tired. I just started my vacation. I normally work nights, which is why I tend to stream at night. But I wanted to turn around to do a day shift to hang out with my sweetie. So I stayed up all day, went to bed around 7:30 and got up at 4:30 this morning. So I'm a day walker for the next couple weeks. Anyway, back to the game. What is so cool about the uni system? Well, I first got interested in it with Witchcraft, which is a fun game. It's very it's urban fantasy. You play witches and you fight against supernatural horrors and basically the government, right? So it's got a Buffy the Vampire-esque sort of vibe to it, which is actually kind of interesting because then they put out All Flesh Must Be Eaten, which is the perfect zombie horror survival game. Perfect. There's no question. Then we've got, the Buffyverse. They put a variety of games out on the uni system, which is awesome. They also, among those, they did Army of Darkness, the Bruce Campbell movie. They converted that to the uni system. But they also did the Buffyverse. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Angel, that sort of thing. But the best thing about it is that these games that use the uni system are extremely compatible. So if you wanted to play Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but you really want to have a zombie survival situation in a Buffy setting, you just take All Flesh Must Be Eaten and Buffy, and they're going to slap together really damn well. Unlike another series of games that came out about the same time, White Wolf's World of Darkness games. Oh yeah, they all technically use a similar system, And you'd say, oh, well, I've got a vampire and I want to play in Werewolf the Apocalypse because the rest of the group plays werewolf, but I've got my vampire and I don't want to give up my vampire and I can coexist. The systems don't mesh, especially if you're trying to bring mage into anything. Might as well drop a god into whatever else game you're playing. Or they're extremely squishy. It really doesn't work. But the uni system absolutely does. In fact, I recently talked about this, or I'm going to recently talk about this in an article on Scormey.com. I've been doing a lot of blog posts regarding different horror games and whatnot. And so it's really cool. But what works best about this? It's not the easiest game I'm going to portray here today. I'm not going to talk about today. It's not the easiest one for making a character or things like that. In fact, the last time I ran this epic zombie survival scenario with just a bunch of people on a bus, like a Greyhound bus, traveling through Appalachia, if I remember right, through the mountains, and the bus crashes. And they have to go and find their way to some sort of civilization and find out, hey, there's monsters out here. There's zombies. A zombie apocalypse literally just started. So they have to hole up and try to work together to survive. I pre-made all the characters. I just handed them out because it was easier than spending a couple hours passing the book around trying to make characters. I'm not saying making characters in All Flesh Must Be Eaten is hard. It's not. But it's generally a sort of game where you're going to want to get together a week prior to the game to make your characters, do a session 0, that sort of thing. Then have everything ready for your Halloween game. It is just yeah. It's mostly because there's so many different options you can fall into. You know, you've got um, obviously, drawbacks and bonuses, that sort of, I can't remember what they call the bonuses. It's been a really long time since I played this, so. Qualities and drawbacks, yes. Which is very, World of Darkness, to be fair. But you can really get your character exactly the way you want them. Way. There were better games, in my opinion, doing this. This is very detailed. And what's cool about it is that it does work for a Halloween game. Don't get me wrong, it does. But if you're wanting to do a one-shot, we'll be coming along to a game a little further on that is better at horror games in general, right? That will work well in this situation, right? I think I found the problem was I was turning my chair and I was making my head turn too much. Or it really just wants to look to the left, or for you guys to the right. I don't know. Yep, I think I turned too much. Anyway, I ran this for a one shot a couple of years ago on my solo hack play test that I used to do. Oh, and one of the reasons it's really good is you just pick a archetype That makes things a lot easier to start with. But a lot of people don't like to do that. They want to know their character from the start. They want to, do everything special. Okay, cool. You do that. Anyway, I keep getting distracted. Sorry. One thing I really like about this, now I'll get on to it eventually. It's got fear tables. It's got everything you would expect from a zombie survival game, right? Oh, I mean, gross damage. It's just because you do different zombies. They might die. Some of them may be shoot in the head. Some might a double tap. Some might not die. Some might have been used to make weapons of war. That sort of thing. Obviously, there's survival rules for building up societies and that sort of thing. Moving from town to town, kind of, what was that? The Walking Dead style, right? But vehicles, specifics about zombies, all their abilities, detriments, horrors. It's got a lot to it, as you might see. But this, yes, this, built into this game, there are all kinds of, this is a should put it with it. But what I'm looking for, oh yeah, I guess it's here. Lots and lots of different settings are already built into the game. So you have different types of zombies and where they might work best. You know, everything from here, there's a post-apocalypse zombies. Hell, they got sexually transmitted zombies. Where you catch a virus and eventually will kill you, and that will turn into a zombie. And zombies. Well, just so much to do. Plus, of course, got all a very useful game. And like I said, it even has conversion to D20 Modern. Not that anyone's playing to Modern anymore. But the information in the back. So there's that. See if this transition works. There we go. Nice. So, while that's there, I will switch to this game. Oh, and this one's a good one. It's not exactly horror, but it's definitely perfect for Halloween. Oh, yes. Get it started up. Yeah, goth girl. I'm a fan too. Bedlam Hall. As it says, it's a depressing role playing game about horrible people. And it is. Oh, yes. When people play this, they immediately think Addams Family or the board/card game Gloom. But to be fair, it's neither. Bedlam Hall is its own unique, interesting little PvP game. What? Really? PvP? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This is a Powered by the Apocalypse game, which immediately put it on my radar as, oh shit, I have to own that. It's also by Monkey Fun, one of my favorite developers. I have many of their games, and I'm super happy with everything they've made. So when I saw that they had made this, yeah, I got bored. Now, let's just talk a brief bit about what the game is. Bedlam Hall is about an old money family in Britain that owns this old decrepit manor out in the middle of the moors, so no one's around. And you've got this old money family that goes back centuries. They're basically nobles. It's not exactly set in a modern setting. It feels more like Downton Abbey. Think Downton Abbey, all right? That's a good baseline to work from. And like Downton Abbey, it focuses primarily not on the family, but on staff. You see, the family are not great people. They tend to be very weird, murderous, you know, that sort of thing. Sometimes girls from the nearby village, just, teenage girls from a nearby village, they might just disappear occasionally. And one of the younger sons from the family, maybe he just happens to be a little rough with them. Well, what to do? We can't have shame or anything, or the criminal, the police looking around. Oh no, can't have that. So it falls to the staff to make sure that the idiosyncrasies, the little mistakes, perhaps you might say, that the family make, they don't come to the public eye. Right? And that's fine. So you kind of cut things. Like here, the occasional dumping of dead bodies where they'll never be found. But it goes more than that. It's a depressing little game, as the cover says, because I guess it takes place after World War I. So again, perfect for a Downton Abbey type of feel. Yeah. The thing is, I guess the Blackwood family we're talking about. I've never actually played this myself, but I've read it a lot, and it's been a little while. I was meant to play it, but my actual play got canceled before then. As you might hear, my voice is not the best anymore. We can't be lured by their temptations. Unfortunately, when it comes to goth girls. Oh, my youth. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Oh, the goth girls, they were my, oh, fuck. Too old. What's the word? Yeah, I was all about that. Let's just say that. Anyway, speaking of goth, Bedlam Hall. There's weirdness in the house. Old ghosts and other things. Plus the weirdness of the old money family. You have to maintain the house. And you want to improve your station because, yes, your staff maintaining the home for this aristocratic family, but, well, that's not where you want to stay in life. No, nay. You want to improve yourself. You want to move up in the world. You don't want to sit here and mop floors for the rest of your life for this crazy, murderous family. Oh no. You want to build the prestige. You want to work your way through the connections of the family and perhaps even marry above your station or find your way working for a more prosperous family. That sort of thing. So you're doing everything you can, but here's where the PvP comes in. Maybe you're the valet. And you see that the maid, well, the maid's getting very, very close with the lady of the house. They're becoming fast friends. And the maid, who's being played by perhaps your best friend's girlfriend or your best friend, who knows? Another player is playing that maid and they are having a good time doing what they're supposed to do. But you're the valet and, well, they're interfering with your plans. So perhaps when you have the opportunity, when there are no eyes around, that maid, while cleaning near the top of the stairs, says, oh, it's so sad. She slipped on the wet floor and took a tumble down 2 flights of marble stairs. Oh no! The lady of the house is beside herself in grief. Well, good thing you're there. You'll certainly be there to console her. Perhaps someday she'll remember your kindness. Ding goes up your prestige. Yes, it's not like you're outright murdering each other. Quite often you have to work together, the players, to deal with the various foibles of the Blackwood family. But when opportunity comes, well, you'll certainly knock the feet out from underneath your fellow players if it means that it will improve your station. Yes, when you accidentally on purpose fall down the stairs. Yes, exactly. That's the point. Sometimes you're working together and sometimes, well, it's just no helping it. Man, it's too bad that the valet got run over by the horses. I guess he shouldn't have been sleeping there. And they'll certainly never be able to tell that in amongst all the stomps from the horses running over him, why did they stampede like that? Who knows? In amongst all that, his head being bashed in with a fireplace poker, they'll never notice that at all. Guess he shouldn't have helped the maid find the bottom of the stairs so quickly. Or maybe he shouldn't have interfered with that other player's plans. Oh yeah, this game rocks. And for some fun on Halloween, there is literally nothing better when it comes to, if you're not wanting to play straight up horror, this game is what you're looking for. If you're fans of Downton Abbey or any sort of period dramas like that, man, you are not going to find anything better. Plus, of course, they've got a trauma system. The further you get in, the more you're basically your sanity is being stripped away. You just slowly spiral down while you're desperately trying to drag yourself up. Yes. It's great. I really would love to bring back the actual play. Just for a little while, if anything, to play this and a few other games. Now, also, as it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, it's a fiction-forward type of game. The systems are simplistic. You roll 2d6, add a modifier based on the relevant attribute. If you get a 6 or less total, you fail. But you fail forward. Maybe you didn't do what you were hoping to do, but perhaps something else happens that improves things, or that moves the story forward at the very least. 7 to 9 is a partial success. Things are, you get what you wanted, but maybe not exactly. There might be a complication that, again, moves the story forward. And if you get a 10 or higher, you get a complete success. Everything worked out. She slipped on the slippery floor. And bump, 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 bump. So sad. Guess we need to hire a new maid to clean up all the blood off the steps. And somebody is going to have to do something with the body because, well, we can't have the police poking their noses around, can we? That sort of thing. Now, what I really love about that system, though, is that you don't roll for everything. You're just saying what you want to do. The only time you roll is if there's a good reason within the fiction for there to be consequences to your failures. It's like, maybe you don't run an athletics check to see if Indiana Jones can run down the hall and dodge through, the uneven ground or anything like that. No one cares about that. But when it comes to trying to dive, outrun and find a way to dive out of the way of the big rolling boulder, or get across a chasm, well, he's got to use his whip and hook the branch and swing across. That is a reason to roll the dice in a Powered by the Apocalypse game. Unless it isn't. Unless the game master just says, hey, you rolled to see if you could escape after stealing the item. You roll Yes, you grab the golden idol and you put the bag of sand on there to replace it, but you only got an 8. So you succeeded, but there's complications. In that, all the traps are being set off and the place is collapsing. Now you run. You run. You did succeed, so you're going to escape. The complication isn't necessarily in the running to avoid all the traps and everything. That's the exciting part that the player gets to describe. When they get outside, the game master can say, oh, it's a bunch of Nazis and a rival archaeologist out there. And they take the idol from you. That's your complication. Hey, but you're not dead. You can describe how you escaped from there and whatnot. Maybe another roll's asked for then. Who knows? But it's not a roll-heavy system. It's a role-playing heavy system. And that works perfectly for Bedlam Hall. As you can see, here's the system right here. Won't let me highlight it. The 6 or below, the 7 or 9, and the 10 and above. I'll center it in the screen there. Excuse me. But anyway, that's pretty much Bedlam Hall. And like I said, if you're not looking for straight horror, this game will work well. Okay, let's see now if it transitioned properly. Well, I don't know if it's a D&D element. The D&D is very roll heavy. And I prefer systems where you don't have to roll a damn D20 for everything. You know? Oh, it's your turn. Do you cast your spell and hit the target? Yes, no, whatever. You got to add all these multipliers. I'm not saying that's crunchy. There are way crunchier games, but it's not for me. I've done D&D for off and on for 50 years almost. So, but yeah, Traveler, again, I wouldn't say Traveler is so much fiction forward, at least the way I remember it. But again, I haven't played Traveler since 1996. It's been a while. Anyway, let's switch up to the next game in the list. Oh, this one's good. In fact, this is one that I believe I talked about in one of my articles. It's either come out already or it's going to soon. Let's see. Hopefully this transitions properly. I don't exactly trust my transitions. There we go. This is Lester Smith's D13 RPG. It is a very unique system. As you think, D13. There are D12s. I've heard of D14s. In fact, I have a few sets that have D14s. But a D13? Nay. What the heck does that mean? Well, this is a horror, supernatural adventure type of game. You can play it lots of different ways. But it has a basic mechanic of you roll these dice, add your multiplier, and go against a target number. Fairly simple, you would say, right? That's also from Lester Smith, who's one of my favorite role-playing designers from way back when. In fact, I found out that this had come out, but I'd missed the Kickstarter. So I contacted him through his website to order. So he put out a thing saying, hey, are you interested in some hardcovers? He had some extras. So I contacted him, said, hey, yeah, I would like to, order a copy. So I got one sent. I love the hell out of it. And then because I got on his email list, he contacted me and a bunch of other people and said, I've got some signed copies left over. And he meant them to go to Kickstarter people, but somehow my name got thrown in there too. Oh yeah, you better believe I have a signed copy of D13. Hell yeah, it sits proudly on my shelf. Anyway, this is an awesome and beautiful game. So anyway, before we get to it, the heck do I mean by D13? Well, get down to it. There's this whole universe and yada, yada, yada. Here we go. It's really simple. The D13 is a D4 and a D10. No, actually a D9. Because there's a lot of D10s that have 1 to 0, and usually the 0 means 10. Sometimes you'll have D10s that have, instead of a 0, it has a 10. Same difference, right? That's a D10. In this case, if it's a 10 or a 0, it counts as 0. So it's 0 to 9. When rolled with a D4, you add them together, and you get a sum from 1 to 13. It's that simple. Now, a lot of people, especially old school gamers who have played for years, 0 means 10. And it's hard to get out of that mindset. But if you play this enough, D4, D9, it becomes very simple. And it's just the same as rolling a D12. Add your, actually, no, this is compared to your attribute plus skill rating. You want to roll less than or equal to the rating, the total. If you roll high, that's bad. That's right. Now I remember. That's why crits, there's only 4 ways to crit. If you roll 1s on each of the 2 dice, 2s, 3s, or 4s. So a 1 and a 1, a 2 and a 2, 3 and a 3, or a 4 and a 4. Those be your crits. Those are the lucky doubles. Yes. I've played this a couple times. But hell yeah. Now to balance that out though, if you roll an 11, a 12, 13 on your D13, bad things happen in scaled order. 11s suck. It's a failure, but it's only a temporary one. By the way, these are always a failure. 12, that sucked really bad. You can't retry it. And you have a major consequence to deal with. 13, not only did something abysmally bad happen, you failed super bad, but on top of that, now you have a touch of shadow, which allows you to gain some awareness of your Empyrean soul, which I'll get into. It gets a little complicated. But it also can mean that you are marked. And, that's bad because it can mean bad things happen to you later on. Now, the thing is that you have a baseline character. That's your Empyrean soul. And it's how you can continue playing the same character, even if your whatever you're actually playing in the adventure dies. You just bring your soul and attach it to something else, and you've got a new character, per se. Same character, but different incarnation. Like, I played once, I made this my Empyrean soul, and I played as a cat. Yes, you can play as a cat. And that was an extremely fun game. Later, I played a game with the same spirit, but played as a person. Ended up being more of a werewolf game, as opposed to that was a demon game, the cat one. And I ended up working with the demon to get vengeance on a bunch of teenagers who had sacrificed another cat. That was so much fun. I loved that game. I was solo, but this works just as well if you play in a group. Also, find yourself a tarot deck because you'll be using it for your drama cards. Sometimes you're called upon to draw a card for various reasons. And it all kind of works together. Yeah, the game gets a little more complicated the deeper you get into it. But overall, it's, again, very fiction-oriented. And you don't have to make it as complicated as it can be. You can stick to the D13 and work with its various complications and lucky rolls, that sort of thing, lucky and unlucky. You can stick to that. But if you want to make it more and more deep, you've got all these different options, especially if you're playing solo, that just add more depth and make the game flow so much better. Personally, I think this works really well for a group setting, even with the cards and all that, because the host, the game master, can really just let that help inspire the way the game moves forward. Because one of the best things about it is that you can walk into the game with almost no prep as a host and let the players tell you what they're looking for. Their characters coming together. Maybe use session 0 to get them together. And then once they're together, established as a group of friends or companions in some manner, then you can let them basically stumble into an adventure and let their rolls and the draws of the cards help inform what happens next. One thing, like with not to go back to Bedlam Hall with Powered by the Apocalypse, but you roll to find out. Maybe you don't know what's going to happen next, so you need to roll to see if things work normally, or does something happen to pop out? Does some complication occur? That sort of thing. Are you lucky or unlucky? What does the tarot card tell you? And of course, there's supernatural powers here that are not super overpowered, by the way. It works out really well in regard. And of course, it's got some rules for a battle board, which, yeah, it's it's a Ouija board. Anyway, that's and whatnot. This is a little old school, little 90s feeling when it comes to here's your set. Um, here's your set damage and that sort of thing. So, like I said, you're rolling against a target number. If you hit, here's the damage it does, yada yada. And that's fine. I prefer more of a feng shui type of, yeah, there's damage rolls, but it's more about if you're fighting somebody that doesn't matter, you hit them, they go down. It doesn't matter. It's more action oriented. So, same with Spirit of 77, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse game that you absolutely must play. Oh, God, yes. Anyway, this is about your spirits and how you get your gifts if you have that sort of thing. Your abilities and such and so on. In the end, this is not hard to make characters for. Maybe if your players have played a lot of different games, they will grasp this fairly easily. If they're used to that one game, that's different. It might take them a little bit to get into it, but you can make it work. And again, loads of fun from, to be frank, a legendary game designer. How can you beat that? Transitioning again. There we go. Okay. Oh, yes. We're going to talk a lot about this one because this is one of my favorite role-playing games of all time. There's no question. This puppy up. Dead of Night from Steam Power Publishing. This is a game that, if you play horror games, you must have in your collection. It is, in my opinion, the perfect drop everything and play a role-playing game on Halloween game. No question whatsoever. Zero prep. The game master doesn't roll anything. All the rolls are player facing. They do the rolls. All you do is, as the game master, is impersonate, perform the non-player characters as they come up and decide the original, here's what we're going to play. And It's as simple as, hey, you guys want to play a role-playing game that's basically like a horror movie? Okay, what type of horror movie you guys want to do? Oh, you guys want to do some Friday the 13th style stuff? Cool. Got it. And you go from there. All the players spend roughly 3 minutes. That's all. Making their characters. If they're slow, maybe it takes them 5. Seriously, this game's awesome for that. You throw together a character, boom. I usually have them spend a little more time and make 2. Because you're emulating a horror movie. Players gonna die, characters are gonna die a lot. So having a spare, probably a good idea. Save you some trouble later on. You can kind of have them in the background of whatever's going on, and boom, now they're in the spotlight because your other character just got their, got shot with spear gun or something like that. They dared to have sex, and whoops, now they're dead. They got burned to death or whatever. Some horrible means of dying. Anyway, like I said, it's super easy to play, super easy to make your characters. The artwork's awesome. Yes, you don't play characters, you play victims. You got a few 4 sets of attributes, right? Identify, obscure, persuade, dissuade, pursue, escape, assault, protect. And they're the opposite of each other, basically. Here's the thing. Identify, used to identify things. Do some research, yada yada. Obscure, used to conceal yourself and other things. Persuade, talking people into doing things. Dissuade, influencing creatures and characters. Rough up a potential snitch. See if you can sabotage the car. Things like that. Pursue, track and follow something, chase things down. Escape, getting away, breaking free from handcuffs, yada yada. Assault, causing harm, hitting things, damaging things, trying to break through a door, yada yada. Protect, preventing injury, trying to dodge, avoid being attacked. I would say escaping, but no, that's under escape. You have specializations as well, where you can beef up one of those 2 pairs, but it costs you a point elsewhere. Like the value of a specialization is always 2 higher than the highest attribute in the associated pair. So if you specialized in assault, it maybe as a 6, your protect would be 4. So I know that if you had that pair and you made a vampire hunter, it would start at 8. So you'd have an 8 and a protective 4. The associated attributes in a pair must be lowered by 2 for each specialization. So that 4 drops to a 2, and that's not good. So specializing, that's great If you really want to be a boxer, you want to be able to fight good, great. But you're costing yourself on your defense. So maybe it's not worth it. You don't have to specialize. Yes, their artwork is like movie posters on purpose. Anyway, you roll 2d10 here, plus the attribute that you're using, and compare to a target. For standard, you just go 15. You need to get a 15 or higher to succeed. Pretty simple. And sometimes that check is for you're trying to escape from the psycho killer. You don't have to roll for every single amount of distance that you run or anything like that. You roll, did you escape? Yes. Describe it. Describe what happened in your running away. And maybe the game master tosses in the occasional, oh, he jumps out and tries to get you, but you dodge away, and it becomes a great little bit of story, moving the fiction along. Like I said, I'm into fiction forward game. Now then, you do have conflict checks, which are basically the same, but you're rolling against an opponent's attribute, plus 10. So maybe you're trying to chase down the vampire before it gets to its lair. Your attempt would be how you're tracking against your pursue versus your pursue plus your dice roll against the vampire's escape plus 10. So you need to get that plus higher. Of course, indirect opposition, that sort of thing. Now there's risk checks. You can lose survival points. Oh, another ad is about to come up. Yay. Anyway, there is no initiative per se. Something happens. Normally you would, in a D&D game, you would roll initiative, right? Here, who speaks first? Now, again, that's not great for a long-term game, but for a one-shot, that's fine. Now, maybe if somebody is dominating that, maybe the game master says, hey, well, we let so-and-so go first. But it doesn't matter because you're all working together, not against each other. You're working together. So if they've got main character syndrome and they're constantly being the first to talk, whatever, the next person to talk goes next. And so, and so, and so. But here's the thing. Sometimes it's kind of a group action. When there's a situation, usually only one die roll is needed. Who rolls the dice? It's not the game master. One of those players does. But no player can roll the dice twice in a row for consecutive actions. So if this guy does something, he rolls. Okay, the next thing somebody else rolls. You can't have this person roll and then something else happens and this person rolls again. No. Everybody gets to act. Everybody gets to be involved. Now, here's a good thing. Survival points. Everybody starts with some, right? It says they usually start with 8 survival points. Cool. When you run out, you're written out of the story. And when you're written out of the story, that means that the game master gets to decide how you die. Yeah, it's kind of fun. And again, there's about an ad to start. It's already been an hour? Huh. So we will take a moment while this ad goes on. If you can hear me, great. If not, we will just kind of babble for a little bit. It's only 19 seconds left, so allow me to get a drink of my soda. Quench my thirst, as you might say. Okay, now I was mistaken. If you have 0 survival points, you are not written out of the game at that point. You can keep going. But if you lose another survival point, you don't go to -1. You're done. These are not exactly hit points, though. You can be perfectly healthy. You've not been touched. But if you run out of, you are at 0 survival points, nobody's injured. You've managed to escape without being harmed at all. The bad guy hasn't touched you at all. Everything's fine. And that's where you get those, wow, I didn't think we were going to escape that. And then a window gets shattered and a 3D piece of glass comes flying at you in 3D. Let's just say 3D again. And it slices your head off. Just out of nowhere. Yeah. Like I said, this game's really fucking good. And the thing is, you can gain survival points. You can spend some to re-roll on a die check. Here's a good one. If you've got a really high assault and a really low defense, you can flip those for that pair for a scene by spending a survival point. So it's not a permanent change, but it's useful, right? If you're sick and tired of Mark constantly taking the initiative and being the first to talk, you can say, nope, survival point. I'm speaking now. I'm doing something. You can't do that twice in a row, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Hold it where you can spend a die to negate the effect of another character's survival point expenditure. Maybe Mary really wanted Mark to go first, so when Jean threw a survival point to say, no, nay, I want to go first, Mary goes, nope, I want Mark to go first. And so on. There's like you can see, what's this? I've got just a thing. Make me special. That sort of thing. Those are all ways that you can spend your points. But you don't want to spend them too much because obviously they're what's keeping you alive, keeping you from getting a 3D death, getting you from becoming the next victim in a Final Destination style death, that sort of thing. Now you can gain survival points if you roll a double on a successful check. You gain a survival point. Very cool. You need to roll 15 or higher, and if you roll 2 8s on your dice, on your d10s, bam, there's a survival point. Yay! If you embrace a horror movie cliche, you can get a survival point. You can't constantly do that, but, and it's the game master who decides whether that really worked as embracing a cliche. But if they go, hey, yeah, you know what, that fits. That's really embracing the final girl cliche. Here's your point. If you decide to have a bad habit, like you always run off with your boyfriend to have sex in the woods, or you're constantly sneaking off and getting stoned, that sort of thing, stuff that is going to potentially cause ruin for everyone else. Now, here's a great thing. It's the Feng Shui or Spirit of 77 player adores this artistic license. A player that describes her actions or setting in a particularly dramatic, evocative, or cool manner may gain a survival point at the GM's discretion. It encourages the players to be descriptive, to not just go, I run away from the monster, to go, I kick the psycho killer square in the jumblies, say something cool, push him aside, leap through the window, landing in the tree across the way, swing some branches down to get down, land on top of the car, and then try to get in to drive away. That is artistic license. Obviously, you don't need to go that much out of the way, but I would. Well rested. If you spend a full scene resting and relaxing, you can't rest for 2 straight scenes, nor can you exceed 5 survival points that way, but you can still rest. Now, the counter to that point is, does the game master let you rest? Does something happen that interferes? Now, obviously, sometimes you just got to do it. I mean, they've burned through all their survival points. The game's been going for 45 minutes. You got still a few more hours to go, and nobody made spare characters. So, probably in their best interest to let them rest for a scene. They could do some talking, encourage them to role play a little bit, describe how terrified they've been. You know, why is this psycho killer coming after us? I just don't understand. Let's see. A character that survives a scenario regains 2 survival points. That means if a character that nears death in one scenario might start another fairly badly mauled, this is fitting, of course, but you can survive to go into a sequel. I did that once when I ran Dead of Night for an old actual play group that I was playing with. And only one player made it through. Everybody else died. And that was great. I then had the start of the sequel finish out the adventure. This guy had gone off to college. He's, still shaken, but thinking, hey, we've gotten past it. He's trying to move on with his life. And then the horrible ghost that was tracking everybody down appears and throws him out through the window of his dormitory, and he falls to his death. That was it was a rule of cool situation. He wasn't super happy about it. I wanted to be able to live and move on. It's a one-shot, dude. It's Dead of Night. Who cares? Did you have fun? If we ever played that again, I would have given him 2 survival points for his next character to have. But it was a perfect ending to the game. Anyway, some people take this stuff too seriously. Anyway, unlucky for some, when the sum of any dice rolled equals 13, just the dice, not everything else, but if just the dice equal 13, fate turns against the good guys. A creature of the GM's choice gains a survival point, and the tension goes up by 1. Tension's a whole different other mechanic that works great. But again, for a one-shot, some of this stuff can be kind of set aside. And here we are with tension. Tension value increases by 1 each time any character or creature uses or loses a survival point. Tension can never increase beyond, is that 15? Yes. Positivity will draft down. At tension 5, maybe there's 2 lovers embracing in a library. At tension 10, the shadows in the library deepen. The man turns out to be a vampire and bites her in the throat. And then at tension 15, it's way more grisly. And you can use that to dictate your pace of the game. If the tension is rising too quickly, that can be a detriment to the game. Some players are just too into the whole diving into the tropes of the horror movies, and they're blowing survival points like crazy. And you can end a game within an hour because too much tension built up if you go by the rule of the system. That's why the tension I use as a guide, not as a hard and fast rule. I think the game where that character ended up getting thrown out a window, it ended up with like tension 23, which is obviously, I was just using it as a guide, just keeping track of how much I should ramp things up. And boy, did I. Oh yeah. Animated trees and people getting yanked into full-length mirrors. I was going full on inspired by half a dozen different horror movies. It was so good. I loved that game, and everybody seemed to have a good time except for the last guy who was a little pissy, but whatever. I told them everybody was going to die, but they didn't believe me. No. Here's the thing, and this I really had to basically ignore. The tension increases by the value of the monster's current survival points whenever they are present in a scene. That can crash a game super fast. Just can't do it. But okay, don't have them visible in the scene. Like in the two lovers having sex on a cot in a cabin. You don't have to show the bad nasty. You can show the tip of a spear gun spear coming up through the back of the guy as they're both pierced from underneath the cot. You don't have to show the psycho killer. You know he's present. And you killed two players. Good job, Game Master. But you don't have to necessarily throw that extra tension on, because that could raise your tension to where it's 15 and everybody's getting massacred after this. You know? Anyway, there's all of these different genres coming up. Like a monster, which is super easy. You just pick effectively an archetype. And you've got a variety of different suggestions going through as a one session game, just for playing like on Halloween. This is perfect because you just pick one of these and roll with it. Yeah, specializations for the monsters that kind of give them a little bit going on, and a vulnerability, because that could be a way for the players to figure out how to escape. Hold on a minute. Had to drop a band hammer. My apologies. Lots of different genres. They're suggested. How to make them work. That's the thing. And it is, yeah, this is, honestly, it's super easy to just figure out where you want to go with this. You know? And that's why I love it. Is literally, I came in for an established actual play with no idea really what we were going to do. I just figured out, oh, we're basically going to do a haunted house story. And ran with that. And it worked out super well. Just told people, hey, make a bunch of teenagers that are looking to party on Halloween. That was it. What was coolest was my wife setting up that she was dating the son of a friend of ours, right? His character. and she's like the homecoming queen, he was like the football player, or whatever, that sort of thing. And they did the whole embracing the genre, the trope of sneaking off to an upstairs bedroom in the horror story. And the thing is that what I promised them was, you're not out of the game. I then told them, here, you're now playing a ghost. You're now on my team. And I let them jump into scenes to help determine what happens, added their imagination into the adventure. And that worked out. It was basically a scene of carnage to carnage to carnage to carnage. And oh my God, that was fun. And they got example victims and whatnot. It's got an internet. So don't really want to show that off. Point is, super good times. Dead of Night, it is possibly the best horror game you can play for Halloween. Just my opinion. It's certainly my horror game. Now then, to make 13 games, I tossed in this one. I should probably not describe everything about every game. Because otherwise this is going to take forever. Anyway. This game is based on an actual urban fantasy book series by Jim Butcher. Yes, we're going to be talking the Dresden Files. Now, normally, I would stray away from games that cover multiple books. Like the Dresden Files is using the Fate system. It's got 3 big core books. And I have them, of course. And it's a lot of fun. Of course, I'm a Dresden Files fan. Blah, words, hard. Anyway, there is another way to play the Dresden Files. I've used this. It's super fun. It's one small book. Let me get it opened with. And it'll switch over momentarily. I hope. I might have a problem with my tracking for my VTuber software. Anyway, Dresden Files Accelerated. It uses the Fate Accelerated system, which is a lighter version of Fate. It's just one book. And it covers the basics. No, it's not as detailed as the main Dresden Files role-playing game. But it doesn't have to be. It's just fine. It works out great. I had a lot of fun with it. And if you have a group that is really into the Dresden Files, they will have a lot of fun with this. Because unlike the full Fate version, which frankly took a while to make characters for, everybody wants to go through the main book. Everybody wants to take their time, and everybody takes forever to make a character. No. This is super easy to just slap together a character It's got the staffer, a lot of the characters, NPCs from the main system. Yes, it's got Harry Dresden himself. A lot of different adventure, um, you know, NPCs basically and monsters you can use. Yada, yada. Oh, Sonya, yes. Anyway, it is a very easy to jump into. Your character made, move on. The Dresden Files setting is already very detailed. So it's really easy to play either in the main setting of Chicago or in your favorite town. I start off, if I recall right, in Portland, Oregon, with my adventure, because I don't know Chicago at all. Not really. Only what the game and what the books have told me. Anyway, you do need to have fate dice for this. You can make use of regular D6s, but fate dice are easy enough to find pretty much in every game store or on Amazon. I only say because I've got around a dozen sets of fate dice. I like fate dice, thank you. Anyway, just 4d6 or 4 fate dice, some tokens, and your sheet, and you're good to go. This is another narrative focused type of game, and while it's got some depth to it, it's not necessarily required. Again, you can set aside a lot of things and just play. Roll the dice and move on. You can push your luck, basically. You can do a lot of stuff, but it gives you the ability to emulate a character from the Dresden Files and those adventures really well in a system that is significantly easier than Fate by itself. And yes, I can hear it right now. People screaming, Fate isn't hard, you just got to get used to it. Yeah, and the GURPS people say that too. I know I just offended a lot of Fate devotees. I'm not trying to. Just saying. The GURPS people say, oh, you can use GURPS for everything. And yes, you can use Fate for everything. That doesn't mean Fate in itself is an ideal system. In my opinion, it can be a bit of a pain in the ass. But Fate Accelerated, not nearly as difficult. Fine. Fine, go ahead and close it. Go ahead and close it. Thank you, sweetie. My wife had to close the office door. I had forgotten to do so. I told her, it's fine, it squeaks, don't worry. But it probably didn't even come through. If it did, who cares? We're doing Halloween stuff. What's with a squeaky door? Sorry. Anyway, I'm not going to go into huge details on the game itself. If you know Fate, you'll know Fate Accelerated. If you don't know Fate, well, you're probably luckier. which is not a nice. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not. I'm just saying. The game works. Is it a one-shot game? If you're really into Dresden Files, absolutely. It's way more one-shot friendly than the full Dresden Files game. That's for sure. You could do a session 0 with Dresden Files Accelerated and be way better off and ready to play than if you tried to do the full Fate version. That's neither here nor there, though. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We'll take a look. But it's a good one. I Call of Cthulhu at all. Games, there are many different versions, and there's Call of Cthulhu and a whole bunch of other games that are inspired by or based on cosmic horror, like you find in H.P. Lovecraft's writings, the Cthulhu mythos writers, all that good stuff. Everything from Lovecraft's writings, like the Call of Cthulhu, all the way to Stephen King and It. Yes, that's cosmic horror. So, and many, many, many things in between and after. But one of those games is a little game that was put out by the Dungeon Professor a couple years ago. Oh, wow, we got a raid. Mr. Bitey's Gaming. Hey, thanks for dropping in. We were just about to talk about the Eldritch Hack. There's lots of cosmic horror games. Oh, thank you for the follow. Oh, I got a couple. Awesome. Thank you. Hope we're not disturbing. Finished our stream. Thought we'd visit a new streamer. Very happy to have you in. We're just talking about games for to play on Halloween for like one shots. And I very much appreciate people dropping in. Always happy to have people. In fact, if I've got people hanging around when I get out of here, I'll probably raid someone else too. Oh, sorry, my knuckles are stiff. Had to pop them. Anyway, the Eldritch Hack. If you guys know on YouTube, the Dungeon Professor, Dan Masters, he wrote this. It is a very, very small game. It is like 20-something pages. But it doesn't need. Oh, thank you for the follows, guys. It doesn't need much. Because it, as far as I can tell, it kind of runs with the idea that you know what you're getting. This is for people who have played Call of Cthulhu, who have played other cosmic horror games. You don't need the concept of horrors from space, beyond space and time. It's described to you. You know what you're getting on the tin. You know there's horrible things out there, and your character is an investigator looking to figure out what's going on, and oh no, I'm insane now. Or I've been eaten by some grotesque monstrosity. It happens. It happens a lot. What I like about this particular one, like I said, I've got a lot of different cosmic horror games that I could have thrown in here, including Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. Have that. Didn't want to break it out because it breaks the multiple book rule that I was trying to do here. It has multiple core books. So, nope, we're not going there. Could have done an earlier edition, but this works better. This is a rules light system. And when I mean rules light, I mean light. You simply roll against the target number. Between 5 and 20. That's it. You add your skill stat to a d20 roll. Sure, there's attributes and such, your money, your equipment, sanity, hit points, all that. And the reason that was done is so that your character is basically compatible with all those old Call of Cthulhu adventures that got published. You have the base minimum stuff to work with those old adventures. So if you just want to break out an old Masks of Cthulhu module from, I think the last one I saw was like 1st or 2nd edition Call of Cthulhu. If you happen to have one of those on hand, bam, there's your adventure. And it's very easy to adapt what's in that module to work with an extremely simple game like Eldritch Hack. Sorry, words were escaping me. I really wish he had added more to this and could have put out a printed copy, but it is what it is. You have basic occupations. Skills are super freaking easy. If your character, like say a professor, has anthropology as a skill or research, and you need to do something that fits that, well, you roll and you use your skill added to the d20, and there you go. Do you equal or exceed the target number? There you go. It works. Some various games, and then literally that's it. Then it goes to the Game Master section, which I'm not going to get into. It's got your basic game mastery stuff, but it's super easy. The reason this is included is because if you're wanting to play a cosmic horror game for Halloween, break out the PDF of Eldritch Hack, and there you go. Whether you have a module, a predetermined scenario, which, by the way, is included here, and it's a pretty cool one. It's here's some characters or there to, I think they're dealing with the death of an elder in the family. And so there's a lot of backbiting on who gets to be in control of who gets to inherit. And it gets way more complicated and very deadly very quickly. But it is a super fun little game. And I mean little, obviously. Like I said, before it goes to the Game Master section, is page 7. That's all you need to play this game. Very, very cool. Back to the talk screen here really quick, so we can switch to the next game. Okay. We're about halfway through now. Woohoo. Gonna have to speed it up a little bit because obviously I've been at this for around 2 hours and not even halfway through. So, yeah, this is the 7th of 13 games. Let me get this started up. And hold on. Fear of the unknown. Now, this is a game that occurred. I think I heard about it on Reddit, or maybe I ran into it on DriveThruRPG and went, ooh, another Powered by the Apocalypse horror game I must have. I know I've talked to the author on, I believe, Reddit. I just happened to, someone was asking what are good horror games to play, and I mentioned Fear of the Unknown, and the author happened to be in the chat, was like, oh, hey. So we talked a bit about it. Obviously, it isn't meant to be laid out as a spread, but with the chat laid out like it is, it wouldn't work. Now, this is a very classic Powered by the Apocalypse game. You've got a copy of the moves that you can do, your actions, character sheet, and 2 6-sided dice. Super simple. Suggests you play some mood building music in the back, which is always a good idea anyway. Now, this is again another fiction forward horror game, but it's more generic. You could do lots, like with Dead of Night, you can play lots of different types of horror in this. Mysteries, straight up horror, intimate horror, that sort of thing. It gives lots of different options. And as I've discovered, it's pretty good for solo role playing as well. It helps you build a mystery. And just works out so nicely. I wish I was showing this a spread, see 2 pages at a time. So that would get so easy to really get a good view of what the game's about. You know, get a good feel for it. Depending on what you're playing, it could actually have more of a kind of horror feeling kids on bikes sort of play. but it also has a lot of inspiration from horror films, from a variety of different book series. Again, much like Dead of Night. Now, it feels to me, darn it, that's something I was going to talk about. My brain got distracted by a picture and went, oh, look, we're talking tags now. No, we weren't talking about tags. Because, again, that's something that's used in Powered by the Apocalypse games pretty commonly. But this requires going into it with at least a common idea of where you're going to go as a game master. In my opinion, it's not so great for just sitting down and rolling with. Now, you could do the whole D66 thing to roll for what's your landmarks. You have your, a primary protagonist sort of character. What's a group that most of the people hate? This will help you build your starting town effectively. Then come up with some rumors, which can help inform where you're going to go. That's great for getting a start. But at the same time, this is all a lot of session zero sort of stuff. In the end, yeah, could you play this solo? Yes. It's got all the tools for it, other than your standard yes no oracles, that sort of thing. I would break out the Game Master's Apprentice with this Horror Edition or Cosmic Horror Edition anytime. It would work fine. It's got kind of a down home horror sort of feel, you know? A little more limited than maybe Dead of Night, but still pleasantly enjoyable. I wouldn't call this scary per se, but it all depends. A good game master could really crank it up and make people really, really uneasy. Of course, your moves, base moves, that sort of thing. And what's cool is that this works out great for spreads, in a spread view. Anyway, that it goes in for the rules, that sort of thing. That's not necessary. Point is, there's lots and lots of horror games that are powered by the apocalypse. I almost went with Cult, but I kind of held off on that one because Cult can be really creepy, downright terrifying, actually, if played right. But is it a one-shot type of game? I wouldn't think so. It's more of it's the sort of thing that you build over time, right? That's the way I see it, anyway. This, like I said, it's got more of a kids on bikes sort of down home, small town horror sort of feel. And that really you can crank up some terror on. A great example of that being Stephen King's It is an excellent example of the sort of thing you could do with Fear of the Unknown. You don't necessarily have to go there. I'm just using that as an example. And it's this also a game. It's fiction forward, and it's just super easy to jump in and play and move forward. It doesn't require a huge amount of back study or spending time building your character and all this and working really hard and then worrying, oh no, I spent 12 hours working on this character and now they're dead. Oh, that sucks. Nope, it's not that hard to make a character. Not really. So, good times. Loads of fun. Is this going to go to where I need it to be? Hopefully, yes. Okay. Did I throw that in? Well, now I feel like a jerk. I didn't realize I went with that one. We're going to move that over there. Oh, no. One moment, please. This is what I get for not paying attention to what I'm doing. Okay, let's refresh the page. All right. So I ended up having to take a game out of my list because I was sitting here going, I could have gone with Cult. And then I realized the next game in the list was Cult, Divinity Lost. So I went, nope, we're not doing that. As much as I love Cult, I just said it's not good for a one-shot, and that's true. I don't know why I included it then in my list, but, well, we'll go with Monster of the Week was already here anyway. Now, here's the thing about Monster of the Week. Normally, I wouldn't say this is great for a one-shot. It's, although it can be played in a serial manner, like one-shot, it's better for, if you're going to go with short play, it's better for the sort of thing where it's, a few sessions. Can you play it one shot? Absolutely. It's a Powered by the Apocalypse, fiction forward sort of game. Everything you need is right here, although they do have some supporting books that work great with it. That's awesome. But it's not where I would first go to for a, a one-shot game. Now, if you're looking to play something for Halloween, this will actually work for you. You are basically adventurers who are hunting monsters. It's the usual urban fantasy. This is the modern world, and hey, it's the modern world. There's monsters, and you're one of the people who know about it, so you're here to fight. Now, I've already mentioned other games that do this and do it well. But I really like Monster of the Week for a few reasons. First of all, it's the very first Powered by the Apocalypse game I ever played. So it's got that kind of nostalgia for it. And it's a good gateway game for Powered by the Apocalypse fiction forward style games. That's great, right? But it also does a few things that are unique into itself. Now, for example, like Dungeon World, not a horror game, not really, but it is Powered by the Apocalypse, and it has magic in it. It emulates old school D&D. So you got spells and that sort of thing. Everything's kind of static. That's fine. This uses, if you're going to be a spell slinger, you're going to use magic, it's build your own spells, which my brother played a spell slinger when we were running this for a short actual play adventure. And oh my God, that worked out so well. I wish I could port this magic system to every game. It's just so easy. Let me do something, see if I can do something here really quick. Okay. Another ad was coming up, and I wanted to snooze that ad. Give it a few more minutes so we can talk about this game a bit. Anyway, so the magic system works great. And if you're looking for a kind of X-Files feeling game, or Buffy the Vampire Slayer game, or based off like the series Supernatural, this does such a great job of building that. I wish that they had pared it down a little bit, because as you can see, the different playbooks in the best Powered by the Apocalypse games, I would say, they're pared down to 2 pages per playbook. this kind of goes on and on. 5, 6 pages for a playbook. Now, granted, that does give them a lot of depth, a lot of information to work with, and that's great. But it's a lot to work with. And I know my players who were playing this when we did that short adventure, it took a month of sessions on our actual play. Anyway, they had never played Powered by the Apocalypse before, any sort of game of that sort. And yeah, they struggled with it a little bit. They would primarily coming from D&D, and they had a hard time grasping it for a little while. In fact, towards the end, they're like, just not sure where to go next. But they did really want to go and play again, which I thought, like I said, it's a good gateway game into action forward, especially Powered by the Apocalypse games. And there's a lot to it, but that was the problem, is it could be a little much. Here's Spellslinger. You pick your which set of attributes you want to have. You circle one of each of these for your look. And of course, you can come up with your own look, but these are just suggestions, things to get your brain working, things to move the story along and get you moving towards getting your character made. Different moves, different gear, leveling up. And like I said, there's plenty of other books for Monster of the Week that further expand it. And Evil Hat, that's the company that makes it, have such a job supporting the game. Like that Buffy and Ash together. I'm not sorry. Someone like Ash and someone like Buffy wouldn't be copyrighted characters. No, not at all. That would never happen. But yeah, this is just, you get your basic moves, your advanced moves that you can have for your character already. Here, as I describe how the magic system, fight, arm, healing, all that good stuff. Luck. If you need to go digging for gear and you don't want to have, these are tags for gear, that sort of thing. These are basically descriptive modifiers to it. There's lots of options here. Anyway, I don't want to go too much deeper into it because now we're into the keeper section, really. But the game is not the best for a one play, but if you've got fans of games that are fans of series or movies that are urban fantasy, like your Buffy and Angel and Supernatural, X-Files, that sort of thing. Any sort of modern supernatural sort of thing. Hell, even American Horror Story can kind of work. You can emulate that through Monster of the Week. That's what it's for. It's for episodic horror adventures, for urban fantasy adventures. It's basically Supernatural, the role-playing game. And it's great. So that's cool. Now, I'm going to move to the break section for a little bit. I got to run. There's an ad coming up in less than a minute. So we'll do that, and I will be back in just a moment if you guys don't mind. Okay, I am back, and we're on to the next game. Stories from the Grave. Here, let me let me modify that a little bit, get it a little shorter so it'll fit into the frame. This is a very cool horror role-playing game. Now, it also kind of requires you to first be into comic books, and more importantly, be into the old horror style comic books from the 50s and 60s that were pre-code, before the government stepped in and said, no, 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 or actually the industry came in and said, no, 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 we can't have all this gory, scary stuff. We've got to have family-friendly comics. That has not lasted. Things have changed. The code basically got tossed out the window. But for a while there, they tried to hammer down on comic books like this, that this is based upon. You might, well, those comics inspired things like the movie series Creep Show, the television series Tales from the Crypt, or Tales from the Dark Side, The Hitchhiker, stuff like that. Kind of a little goofy, over the top horror. As they call anthology style horror, which works great for. Now, it's written and drawn in a style like those comics. So it's very evocative of that. Now, for the system wide, it uses something that's basically based on the Black Hack, which is an old school revival system. And so anybody that's used to that sort of game, that's, your precursors to current D&D, you'll get this. This will work. It will be easy to get into and play. Unless I'm remembering the wrong one. No, no. I've got two games that are like this. One's not horror. It's post-apocalyptic barbarians of the sea. My bad. Never mind, I'm babbling. I think it's called Barbarians of the Ruined Earth, which that's the one that uses the Black Hack, I recall. This, the attributes look like it's very powered by the apocalypse, or at least it's inspired thereof. But not quite, really. You roll a certain number of dice, take two of the results, and add them together. The higher, the better. Yeah. I remember being kind of confused when I played this first time because it was very different. But nonetheless, the feel for it should be great. Obviously, it's very horror. It's very campy horror, but it works really well for one shots. I do remember that distinctly a few years. And like I said, it's a little over the top gory. Anyway, this is great for people that are into basic horror, right? You have some ideas for here's some things. The item, an object comes into the player character's lives. At first, all seems well, but things turn sinister. Your basic monkey's paw, right? You can just come up with little ideas that pop up and roll from there. Things that, uh, well, be basically right out of one of these comics. And it's a bit of an acquired taste, but It's better than playing another session of D&D on Halloween because it could be scary too. Yeah, let's not go there. Anyway, moving on. Now, one moment. Yeah. Switching to a game that, strangely enough, I talked about just last week. The Whispering Vault. This is, although you can still find copies of it on like Amazon, it is woefully out of print, as far as I know. I've heard some people say, "Oh no, this publisher over here or that publisher over there has the rights to it," but that doesn't mean it is in print. For a while there, this was my favorite role-playing game of all time. It is, like I said last week when I was doing the test stream for this, it's very body horror. An example would be Hellraiser, would be a good example of the overall feel you get here. But you are playing investigators fighting supernatural um, threats. In basic, that is what you're doing. But you're not, because you're not alive. Not really. You died and got basically drafted after a fashion to be what do they call them? They stars. I'm sorry, doctors. Now, a stalker is basically a hunter, a bounty hunter of sorts, that goes after beings that have left the other side, come back into the mortal realm, and are wreaking havoc. You then, as a stalker, come across into the mortal realm, form a mortal body for yourself, where you can then more easily travel through and mesh into humanity without causing a massive stir from, oh my god, what the hell is that coming through town. Kind of hard to investigate where the weird thing is if you can't go and talk to people at the local town hall and find out where the weird things are happening. Because you look like the weird thing. Anyway, besides the point. It gets way more complicated than this because, yes, sometimes it's a stalker who goes insane and decides they want to go back to the mortal realm for this reason or that, and you have to go find them, capture them, drag them back before they do too much damage. Right? no big deal. But that is not always the thing. Sometimes it's other things that escape from the other side. Fine, sure. You go over and find the evil monster and you bring it back. All these things then get thrown into the Whispering Vault, which is basically this massive prison. Okay, cool, right? That's pretty easy to get. But part of this. Then there's the aesthetics. I kept calling them architects last week. They're the aesthetics. These beings effectively dream. They're a community of very, very powerful beings that they dream, and those dreams become reality. They dream our reality into existence. But sometimes that's not quite good enough for them. Sometimes they decide, you know what? They'd rather just create their own reality. So they hop on over to the mortal realm and find a little spot, any town, USA, like I said last week, and basically corrupt the living shit out of it and turn it into this horrible, horrible place full of whatever the hell this aesthetic was dreaming about. Which kind of potentially could tear reality as a whole asunder. So that's where it falls to stalkers to go find said aesthetic, defeat it, and drag it back kicking and screaming and throw it into the Whispering Vault so that reality can be repaired. And if that means destroying an entire town or whatever, well, okay. Because what matters to the stalkers isn't saving human lives, although that is part of it. Like if you're in any town, USA, and there's some sort of, flesh-eating ghoul that is running around, you don't want people to die. That hurts reality. You want to find flesh-eating ghoul, defeat it, drag it back, throw it in jail. But if some very powerful aesthetic has taken over any town, USA, and turned all the people into horrible things, and you need to protect reality as a whole, well, if it means you leaving town basically wiped out, nobody there, because they all turned into these horrible servitor beings for the aesthetic, if it means saving reality and leaving the town lifeless down to the very last puppy, okay, that's what you got to do. Oh, my sweetie is here. Is that happen to be a drink for me? Ah, she's brought me a blended coffee. If y'all have Dutch Brothers where you live, this is a blended
caramelizer.
Just does it have the
It's salted caramel mocha, but
it's a salted caramel mocha blended sugar-free coffee drink. Oh my God. Allow me to indulge. So good. For those who don't have Dutch Brothers and don't know what a blended is, it's a chocolate Slurpee. with caffeine. Or an icy. You know, the same basic shredded ice drink. Yeah. I'm a fan of these. They're expensive, but, you know, I indulge every few days. And my sweetie is nice to me. Anyway, moving on. This is a very dark game. It came out in the 90s. I remember running it for my group way, way, way back then in the mid 90s. And I asked them what they thought of it. I remember my aunt gave probably the best description. It fit what they felt overall, was that it's a superhero game. And in a way, yes, she's right. But a very dark sort of superhero game. It's very moody, and think of if the Hellraiser demons were out running around doing what they're doing in the original Hellraiser movie. You know, pulling skin off people and encouraging them to kill others, and just bad. But you show up to find them and the dude with the skin torn off and defeat everybody involved there and drag them all back, not to hell, but effectively some sort of purgatory prison. The whispering coming from all the beings inside as they scream against their imprisonment, let's say. So, is that a superhero game? I guess you could see it that way somehow. But also, not. Take, for example, The Keep. The Keep was an excellent book from the 70s, early 80s that got turned into a not so excellent movie because the producers basically cut it down to nothing and made it very hard to follow. I have it in Steelbook edition, but that's beside the point. Blu-ray, Steelbook, they just put it out recently. And I enjoy the hell out of that movie. But it could have been so much better. But basically, being horrible aesthetic being gets released from its imprisonment during World War II by a bunch of Nazis. And this stalker goes from just some regular dude to suddenly having all these powers and knows that he has to go and head over there and fight it and defeat it. That is the Whispering Vault. Maybe a solo version, but still, that's the Whispering Vault. So it can get a way weirder, though, than it does in The Keep, but you get my point. If you want a good example of this game, how it would play out, that movie is a great example. Although the book is probably way better. Yeah, every time you play, you have stats for your stalker, but you also have to create an avatar, which has its own attribute based off of your own. So every time you play, you're playing effectively a different person, right? So it gives you a lot of freedom in how you play and what you play. There's lots of opportunities for role playing. It's just super cool. And it's your basic, you roll against a target number. So super easy to play. Again, it's mid-90s type game. You've got that sort of system mentality. It's very not quite crunchy, but there's a little bit of that too. I always thought that this picture here I'm centering, always reminded me of Judge Death from the Judge Dredd series. I'm a Judge Dredd fan. And here's the different types of power. Not choose, but she'll give you even more depth with. You can have servitors. Yeah. It's a really cool game. And I would say if you're going to play this for Halloween, if you can find a copy and play it, then by all means, give yourself time. Do a session 0 the week before, or at least a few days before, and give yourself a good 8 hours, because this is going to take a while. If you really want to get into it, really throw yourself into the game, yeah, give yourself time to explore it, because it's good. Yeah, excuse me, we'll switch back to the talk screen real quick. There we go. Anyway, move on to the next game. Rapidly moving through them. Here we go. Now, this next one is the newest of all the games that I'm going to be showing off. And it's a quite interesting little game, in my opinion, but I am a little biased. Now, once upon a time, I used to play a lot of MMORPGs. Started with Anarchy Online, went to World of Warcraft and Lord of the Rings Online, and yada, yada, yada. But along the ways, before I got into Guild Wars, but right about the same time, actually, this came out a month or so before Guild Wars 2. And boy, did it get its ass stomped by the launch of Guild Wars 2. This is the Secret World. Now, you can still play in this universe if you play Secret World Legends, the cooperative role-playing game. It's fun. I'll probably be streaming a little of that later this week. That's neither here nor there. What's important here is that I always wanted to be able to play the Secret World as a tabletop role-playing game. And about the time that Wizards of the Coast did their whole OGL debacle, a little bit before that, someone got the rights to make a tabletop role-playing game based on the Secret World. And they were going to do it using 5th edition rules for D&D. Which, okay, I'm not the hugest fan of that. But you know what? If it's a chance to play the Secret World, I jumped on Kickstarter and I backed that in a second. Still have it, right? But when the OGL was going on and people weren't sure whether, because it hadn't come out yet, it was still being developed, this game, for 5e. We asked the developer, we're like, if they get rid of the OGL, what's going to happen to the Secret World? Are you going to redevelop it, change it to a different system? And they said, well, if they had to, they would. They really wanted to stick with 5e for now because they'd done so much work on it. But if they had to change it, they would change it to Savage Worlds. Now, after they got the 5e edition out, they then did another Kickstarter for the Savage Worlds edition. And that's what we're talking about today, because I backed them both. They did recently do another Kickstarter to do a full print edition, because these are print on demand, to do a full stitch-bound printing of the Secret World. And I'm like, you know what? No. I've already given enough money to Star Anvil. I like it, but I'm happy with print on demand. Thank you very much. Anyway, this is an urban fantasy horror game. You play as members of some secret societies, the Templars, the Dragons, and the Illuminati. Sometimes you can play different ones, maybe all Templars. I'm a Templar, personally. I can't get into the Illuminati or the Dragon. That's just not my thing. But I've always loved the Templars. So that's where I'm coming from. Beside the point. God, the artwork in here is so good. Anyway, if you really like, if you remember the Secret World MMORPG, or even you like the Secret World Legends, this game is for you. And what's best is that it works great for one-shots. It really does. I mean, yeah, you got to develop your character and whatnot. This is what session zeros are for, fine. But you could play it as though you're doing effectively a dungeon or a run through this particular town. You're going to Innsmouth Academy. You're going to investigate that or whatever. You want to do things like that? Great. You want to go to Egypt and do some stuff there? Great. Lots of options. You want to create your own, as a game master, you want to create your own section of Earth that has not been touched yet by any of the Secret World games. Great. Because unfortunately for the Secret World and Secret World Legends, Funcom has not created a lot of updates for the game. You could say it's a little abandoned in a way, which is why I don't play the game anymore. Not really. Point is, you have these basic avatars you can jump into that make it super easy to make your character. Much like with playing Secret World Legends, for example. Makes it easy for you to jump right in and do what you need to do. Right? Nice haircuts. Uh-huh. Anyway, does this fit exactly with the games? No, not exactly. It's got enough of the feel that works. you know? And that's the important thing. It's got different styles of magic. Because everything's magic. Even if you're, hammers and shotguns, it's still magic. It's all you're casting with these weapons. It's an amazing game. And using Savage Worlds rules, the Adventure Edition, so Suede, if you're used to that, holy crap. Now, where people say fate can be used for anything, or GURPS can be used for anything, what they really mean to tell you is that Suede can be used for anything. Hell yes, this system rocks. Is it a little crunchier than, say, something more, powered by the apocalypse? Yes, absolutely. But that's fine. Because people like Crunch like to do shot too. And this isn't as crunchy as, say, Pathfinder. But it's fine. It works great. Hey, it's Richard. Sonic. Yes. Anyway, one of my favorite NPCs. Point is, plenty of options, plenty of stuff to work with. Now, getting your hands on this game. Sure, you could back the newest Kickstarter for it if you want to get a stitch-bound copy. I would suggest that. Getting a good print copy is always a great thing. But for playing for Halloween, just go to DriveThruRPG. You can buy it right there. Buy the digital copy, the PDF. Solved. You can get it as the 5e edition, or, in I suggest to be the superior edition, the Savage Worlds edition. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. The Secret World Savage Worlds edition. Say that 5 times fast. Tell me you don't mess up. You will. It's simply a matter of time. Now, some might say, why don't you just install Secret World Legends and all your friends get together and they all install it and they make characters and you play together, because you can do that. You can have up to 10 people playing together. So why don't you shut up? We're talking about tabletop role-playing games here. Yes, you absolutely could do that. But should you? If you're looking to sit around a table and play some spooky fun? No, you should get this, and you should play this. Especially if your players are all I want to play is D&D. Hey, there's a 5e edition, man. And it'll super easy to jump into for people that only know D&D. But for people that actually have good taste, there's the Savage Worlds edition. And good fun. That's all I got to say. At least on that. All right, it did move. Cool. I was wondering if it was going to switch back to right thing. Game stuff. One of them I'm a little iffy on, but I needed something to work with here. But this one is not that one. This coming up is going to be Oh, so good. Let's see if it transfers over. Let's see if the tracking actually works on my talking. They came from beyond the grave. Now, what the heck is this? This is a very cool horror role-playing game. From Onyx Path. Now, who's Onyx Path? Well, they used to make a lot of stuff for World of Darkness. They make the Pugmire and Monarchies of Mao games. This uses the story path system. So if you're familiar with the more modern versions of World of Darkness, this will be familiar to you. You have a lot of D10s because you're going to need them. This is a really good horror game. And while it's great for campaign play, for playing for long periods of time, it's great for that. But it also can be done well for Halloween one-shots. Why is that? Because this game, it's by its very nature, is built for that sort of ideal. Let me explain. Earlier, I talked about Dead of Night, which is built around various types of horror movies, right? This is along the same line, but it's a little more limited because Tales from Beyond the Grave is built around or designed to emulate, to be more specific, Hammer films. You know, from the mostly 1960s, those trashy British horror films that they used to make, the ones with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. They did Dracula films, they did Frankenstein films, I think they even did Mummy. But very gory, lots of sex, gothic horror. That's what this is. A little goofy, very fun. It is just stupid fun, to be quite honest. And not to say the game itself is stupid. Oh, no. No, not at all. It's not a little story. But people that are into this sort of horror movie and they know the story path system at all, this is be super easy to make characters for. Can it be run as a comedy game? Yes. Can it be run as a horror game? Yes. Should it be run as both? Probably. I have but one complaint about this game, and it's not the fault of the game. I got it through drive-through RPG, and, well, the print-on-demand, it's one of the few times where their print-on-demand service kind of failed me. Because the screen is a little the cover is a little off. So part of the spine is visible on the front and part of the back is visible on the spine. So it's a little offset. If I were buying this at a store and an actual print copy, I would have said, no, thank you. I'll put this aside. But for print on demand, it's acceptable, especially it was before print on demand prices skyrocketed. Now you got these various archetypes, right? Like dupe, which they lay out all the stuff for you to make it easy for you to make a character. Pick some tropes. Yeah, the hunter. Yes, definitely set in like the 60s or early 70s. It's very evocative of it. The mystic, like I said, sex sells, lots of skin shown, all that. That's what it's all about. Of course, your professor with a head in the jar. I wouldn't consider that standard equipment. Saying the raconteur. Again, looking at the art, get a good feel for what the game is about. Of course, here's your classic vampire story. Give you an idea of where you're going with it. Those are very the words "the" and "devil" are doing a lot of hard lifting there. Anyway, example, you can create your character from scratch. I remember I made my character for my actual play when I ran this. I made him basically from scratch. Went through all the steps, and I think probably in the end would have been better off going with making it with an architect. Just my opinion. Anyway, station depths and whatnot. And again, the abilities and architect paths, and it get a little detailed. So again, this isn't the best game for a one shot. It's more built towards campaign play, like I said. But in the instance where you want to play something that's Hammer movie like, and you're looking for that specific style, that's what this game just has in spades. They Came from Beyond the Grave is style incarnate. It is just dripping in blood, to be honest. Now, again, if you want something a little different, just as an aside, if you're more interested in flying saucers, monsters that came out of the ocean, more of a 50s sci-fi sort of feel, they have a sister game to this. It Came from Beyond the Sea. Or Beneath the Sea. It came from Beneath the Sea, if I remember right. Let me look at my shelf. I'm sorry. They came from beneath the sea. Now, that's not exactly horror, but again, neither is Bedlam Hall. So, you know, if that's what you're looking for, they've got two games that are super easy to play, especially if you're familiar with World of Darkness sort of play. This is going to work out for you. And look at that art. Pips. Oh my God, the pips. You know, if I were for Halloween this year, I would probably miss out. If my old group were still together, I think they would dig this so hard. Anyway, moving on. Is it gonna switch? There we go. We have a game left. And really, I wasn't going to suggest this, but I think it's worthwhile. It kind of fits. That is, if it'll load. There we go. This is a very simple little suggestion. It's not for everybody, but Trophy Dark would make for an interesting one shot for Halloween. Now, what is Trophy Dark about? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's a dark fantasy / horror game. It's about treasure hunters who want to go and explore the dark woods, see what's there, find evil nasties and kill them, and bring out treasure. Pretty simple. Problem is, the forest doesn't want you there. And so it's got a lot of atmosphere to it. Kind of, if your players are really interested in more fantasy than horror, this works. If they're more into kind of a dark Grimm's fairy tales play, this absolutely works. All you got to do is make your basic treasure hunter. You have some few abilities and whatnot. Look at that. It's a very simple character sheet. Just follow out the options. And there you go. It's really easy to make a character, and it is not that difficult. It's got a kind of feel to me, different system, obviously, but it's got a similar feel in its dark foreboding ruin as Mirkborg. And I don't think I would personally play this for a Halloween one-shot. Except in the case where you've got people that just want to play a fantasy game. Okay. You can play D&D. There's plenty of horror you can do with D&D. Not good horror. Horror. I mean, you've got Strahd. You've got Ravenloft. You do zombie stuff with it. You can do all kinds of stuff. There's monsters aplenty in D&D. But here's the thing. Is that really, really horror? I'm going to say no. This is horror. Yes, it's got safety tools. Oh, boo, freaking who. Point is, you don't have to use anything you don't want to use. Just saying. I think they're a good idea. That's beside it. Sorry, I've been going for a while. Anyway, the point is, this is a sort of game where you've got this overarching concept. And you just run with it. That's all you got to do. As a game master, you're letting the players do a large amount of the heavy lifting. They're treasure hunters. They're going into the dark woods. They're going to tell you a lot of what you need to build off of, to build their story. They're going to tell you the story. You're going to throw things in there to make it interesting. And you've already got the most interesting thing of all. These dark, deadly woods full of unknown terrors. And, if they're lucky, some treasure to be found. Now, the thing is that this is a sort of story, sort of game that emulates stories that we can all get behind, right? Everything from Hellraiser, which I mentioned before. The main protagonist in Hellraiser was looking to get his hands on that box. And when he did, it led to his ruin. Took a little bit, but it led to his ruin, right? Everyone who got their hands on that treasure, it led to their ruin. This is much the same thing here. It's a tale as old as time. So, this is a game where you can just throw in your players, give them something to do, let them tell you what they're wanting to do, let them interact with each other, and the next thing you know, you're all having a great time. Maybe you spooked the living hell out of them, because, sorry, dark, spooky woods falls right up there with haunted house as perfect locations for Halloween one-shots. It's super easy to mess with people's heads there. So, yeah, there you go. Now, the system itself, again, I have yet to be able to run this. Boy, did I really want to. But no group. Kind of hard to do it. but it's a well-written book that gives you lots and lots of options to work with. Getting your hands on a print copy, not so easy, but again, digital copies can be found super easy. You got your drive-through RPG, it's where I got my copies. So I have Trophy Dark and Trophy Gold and Trophy Loom. No, this is not a game that requires multiple books. They're all self-included, except for Loom. Loom is an addition to Dark and Gold. Gold is more of a dungeon crawl. Dark is more, fantasy horror. Anyway, looks like we're coming up on yet another ad. Sorry about that. But maybe I can throw in a snooze real quick. I'm using the wrong mouse. Boom! Knocked it back another 5 minutes, which will allow me to kind of tie things up into a nice bow. Sorry about that. It was taking a moment to transfer. Anyway, those are my 13 games. Halloween. There's plenty of other games, obviously, that you could be playing. Plenty. But these are ones, especially certain ones, that I think lend themselves very well over to playing as a one-shot for Halloween. Now, if you had to ask me, personally, of these, I'm going Dead of Night. Easy peasy. I mean, not to be rude about it or anything, but damn. It can do pretty much everything. No setup, and character creation is super easy. Why wouldn't you play that game? I mean, it's just begging to be played. But that's just me. People have different ideas of what they're looking for. Maybe they want to play something more Call of Cthulhu. There's Eldritch Shack. You want to play something more standard horror, Fear of the Unknown, or Monster of the Week. They want something goofy, Stories from the Grave. You want something a little more epic, Whispering Vault. You want something more, you really like you some zombies, All Flesh Must Be Eaten. You want something that's a unique system, D13. You want something that's more like British period dramas, Twisted, Bedlam Hall, and so on and so forth. So, kind of awesome, There's plenty of things to do here, plenty of options, and again, you can always fall back on Call of Cthulhu. You can always fall back on lots of different horror games. You can fall back on D&D if you have to. I wouldn't, but that's just me. Hell, if I wasn't already going to be busy on Halloween, I'd be running a special live actual play of playing something probably like Dead of Night or D13. That's just me. That'd be something I would do. Anyway, I'm going to tie this all up. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. You guys are awesome. Really great to have a few people just hanging out. And thank you again for the raid. That was awesome. Really don't think there's enough of us to raid really anybody at this point. But I probably will be streaming again later. Not sure what, Probably from my Xbox, so no, none of this cool displays and transitions and whatnot. Unless I get Secret World Legends installed, I might play that. Who knows? Anyway, till next time, I'm Scormey. Thank you very much for dropping in. I'm trying to beat the ad here. So, see y'all later.